So you're recording, Natalie? Okay. Christy, you said you didn't get the email?
I didn't, but I've been looking forward to this, and I've had it in my phone. So I'm like thinking, did I just put it in there thinking I was gonna sign up but never did? I don't know, but I'm glad you gave me the link.
Okay, awesome. I'm putting the, I just put the Miro link in the chat with the password. So go ahead and see if you can get on that board. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen as well, and we'll get started here. We'll just let people in as they pop into the waiting room there. So Christy, once you're able to get on there, and I know Jamie, you're on the phone, so you should be able to do this afterwards. We'll send a follow-up email with the link and password so you have it. But this a little sign in over here, just follow the directions on the top, double click to answer some quick questions here, and paste your photo, your name, and then tell us whether you're more visual or you prefer written things. And you can fill this out at the end too. I just kind of wanted to get everyone kind of introducing, and we got a small group here, so we can actually go around with some introductions if you'd like. I mean, so most of you know me, but I will introduce myself anyway. So I filled out my little passport here. I'm Rachel. I'm no longer in Baltimore, but I kind of feel like I'm always in Baltimore, if that makes sense. So I'm in Texas right now, and I've been doing consulting work actually as a workshop facilitator and strategist. So when there was this opportunity to run the Baltimore user group for Miro, I was like, yep, me, I'll do it. And so that's me right now. Christy, why don't you go next? Just kind of quick introduce yourself, what drew you to this session?
Yeah, so I am a user experience designer, and just always interested in learning about new tools and processes. And you know, as with many teams, our team is fully remote now, so I don't know, I think it'd be great to get them, you know, onto some sort of whiteboard collaboration tool. We used a lot of, you know, did a lot of whiteboarding when we were in the office, and it's just sort of fallen by the wayside. So I'm looking forward to learning more about this tool.
Christina, why don't you go?
Sure. So I also and do UX research and UI design, and I also do a bit of like branding and, you know, concepting. And so I'm not super familiar with Miro, but I've had an account for a while now, and I think that this event will help get me sort of going and maybe build some confidence in the tool itself. But as an aid in facilitation, that's what I'm most excited to use this thing for. And so as I'm participating in this meeting, I'm taking notes about like, how would the various clients or participants, how would they react to all of this? So this is great. I'm so glad you're having this event. I'm very appreciative and hope there are more in the future.
Yes, and Christy, you missed, we were talking about this earlier. The goal is to have one event a quarter. Okay. And today we'll brainstorm on some ideas of the types of things you all want to learn. Jeff, are you still there? You want to give a little intro?
Sure, thanks, Rachel. So yeah, I am in Baltimore now. Met Rachel maybe through connection on LinkedIn or something of that nature. I am not in brand or design, but I've always been interested more in, I mean, I do like the idea of user interface, and I do hope to be building more. I'm an account manager right now for my current company. And so I really want to get back into some other more creative pieces. And so I have worked with some of the canvases on like an application like Envision. But I think like what Christina just mentioned, I've had the account on Miro. I would say have not done very much. So I thought this would be just a great way to jump in and start learning. So thanks, Rachel.
Awesome. Jamie, I think you're still on mute. So whenever you pop on, if you're off the phone at some point, feel free. We'll have you introduce yourself when you are able to. So let's do it. I'm going to bring everyone to me on the board here. Let's do a quick little warm up. grab one of your yellow dots here. So click and drag to get a dot and drag it to where on this continuum you fall. Are you brand new to Miro, or are you a Miro master, or are you somewhere in between? So we'll have you kind of do that. I'm getting you starting to play with Miro before I explain all the features. Just throwing you right in the deep end here. Just kind of move them around. And it's okay if you're a newbie. That's what this is for. We're going to go, we have a small group. So if I start talking about some of these features and you all know these features already, speak up, pop in, let me know, say, hey, can we move on to the next thing? Because I don't want to explain something that everyone in the room already knows. All right. Looks like we get, and I'm going to hide the pointers right here on my screen for a second. So all right, so it looks like we're mostly new to Miro, so that's good for this particular workshop. So I want to get from you all kind of, what are some of your, I'm going to bring you to me again here on the board. What are some of your hopes and fears for this workshop? What do you hope to get out of it? And then what are you worried about? Is there anything like in the back of your mind that that's snagging you, that you're, I'm not going to be able to learn this, or I'm not going to be able to keep up, or anything like that? Just go ahead and double click on the post-its to write what you're kind of hoping to learn from this workshop, or any fears that you might have. And while you're doing that, I'm going to show you guys one of the features that we are going to look at later, which is the timer feature. And so can you all see that pop up on my window there, the timer? So Miro's actually integrated music into their timer. And so when you have the timer on, there's some music going on. So it's not this dead silence, but you also have the option to mute the music while the timer's going on, and the timer still goes. So if you have something like this, where it's an activity where you need like 2 or 3 minutes where people are just individually ideating and you want some background music, you can use the timer feature. You can also pause the timer at any point. If you're like, okay, gotta pause it. Someone has something we gotta talk about, and then put over into which I don't like to call the parking lot, the bike rack is what I call it. A little more sustainable. So, all right, let's see what we got here. Shortcuts to get started quickly, learn a new tool, to find increasing efficiency. It actually has increased so much efficiency in my workflow using Miro. I actually use it for a ton of things. Build confidence in using Miro. Yes, that is definitely our goal today. All right.
So it looks like,
sure.
In order to have your own boards, you actually have to sign up. But because we're just guests, or you gave us a link, we don't have to have an account. Is that
correct? Yep. And we'll get to sharing later on. So because I set this with shared as a shared board with a password, you don't actually have to have a Miro account to pop in it. All you need is the link and the password. I also set it where you can set your names when you log in there, and it'll ask you, do you want to join anonymously, or do you want to put your name? That is actually a newer feature that Miro has added. Looks like we've got Lisa joining here. So let me go ahead and put the link and password for you, Lisa, in the chat. But yeah, to participate in the board, if you've set it with sharing with a password, you do not need an account.
And I may be jumping ahead here because I'm sure you're going to.
No worries.
But I know that you kind of like were zooming in and out of things. It seems like, or how are you doing that?
Yep. So you see this little thing down at the bottom that says 9%. Yep. You can either do it from there, plus or minus. I use a trackpad, so it's the same motion as you would zoom in and out on a trackpad. If you're using a trackpad, like on a laptop or anything like that, you want to make sure that your settings up here for your navigation mode is set to the right thing, mouse or trackpad. and that'll help you zoom in and out. And this is kind of your map over here. You could be like, oh, I want to go over here. I want to zoom in. I want to zoom out. That's really what it, where you get all those features. That is something when you onboard people onto a new board, that is the first thing I teach people in a workshop, how to set your navigation settings, how to zoom in and out. And usually I'll have a board on the workshop that has these hints and tips on it.
Cool.
I also send an email out ahead of time that says what to expect. And I explain that you don't need an account, but if you'd like to sign up for a free account, you can as well. All right, that you may not get a chance to use it after you learn it. Well, that's why we're going to have a lot more sessions with the user group, different ways you can use it. Wireframing, I use it for my mentorship sessions. There are so many different ways that you can use this. I think that people don't think of right off the bat. Miro will be tough to learn. It's actually a really easy learning curve. There's a lot of features in it. And I think if you just go into it understanding that you're not going to know all the features all at once. I'm still learning features. There's still even beta features they're releasing. I think just go into it with that mindset and be good. Well, we're going to tell you where to start today, so don't worry about that. Less tech savvy participants won't want to use Miro. I've actually run into this in my workshops. It's the easiest way to do that is just simplify how you do your activities in Miro. If it's something where you're using it for a visual to guide them through a meeting and you have a co-facilitator who's taking notes on the board for them as opposed to them taking notes, it's more of a sharing screen thing and then you can use that board internally in your team collaboratively after the client interaction, right? So there's a lot of ways to kind of combat that. And maybe we'll even have an event just on that to kind of talk through some of those. All right. So let's get started here. I'll bring you all to me here. And we're going to kind of think about all the different ways you can use Miro. So I started here. I'm going to talk through some of the ways I use it. And then we can even talk through more. I even just talked about mentorship sessions. Mentor. Be great if I could type. Right. So, I use these for workshops and interactive sessions. Another way, especially for user experience and UX, is journey mapping internally with the team and journey mapping activity with the client. Wireframing. We've actually used this with clients where we do a pretty simple wireframe of a website and have them actually comment directly on it in Miro, which is really helpful. Brainstorming. There's so many different brainstorming activities. One of my favorite is a creative matrix activity, and I can share that with you all afterwards or in another session. Retrospectives, even, yes.
Are the various formats that you're speaking about, those you can find, there are free templates.
Yep.
For some of these facilitation techniques. Okay,
there
so just
are.
so
We've got
people know. Okay.
Yes, and we've got a whole board on that coming up here.
Okay.
And we've got a place for you to share any templates that you like as well. So yes, there are tons of templates to start with on these. There are actually 2 different places in Miro you can find those templates and Miroverse, and we'll talk about those in a second here. There's also a really great site called Boardle. I'll put the link in the chat here in a second. But they have Miro templates, but they also have Mural and other templates, but they do have a ton of Miro templates. And so, some of the other ways, flowcharts, retrospectives, it's great to use for retrospectives on your internal team and mind mapping. So there's so many different ways. I've seen this used even just for team building events, right? How have any of you used Miro in any different ways, or are you just so new to it you haven't used it quite yet?
This is Christy. I've never used this before. This is
okay. All right. Well, hopefully you're getting some insight into how you might be able to use it. From a user experience perspective, right? You might use it for personas, right? So I've used it for persona activities where we do empathy maps in here. directly in Miro. You know, there's a lot of different ways to use it for user experience and prepping for UX research, all those kind of things. User flows is another really great one, Christy. All
And
right.
How do you use this for retrospectives?
So there's actually some really great retrospective templates, and I can direct you to some of those. Do you know the sailboat retrospective activity? Okay, there's a really good template for that I'll show you, but it's really just walking through a retrospective with your team and being able to take notes live and visually, right? So what went well, what went wrong, right? The same thing you would do in a regular meeting, but making it visual and making it on a canvas, right? It gives people something to go back to. Maybe if they can't think of something exactly in the retrospective meeting, they have that sustaining link that they can go back and they can add post-its to it, where they're not on the spot in that meeting and they think of it. Maybe they're like, oh, I should have said that, you know? So that's how I've seen it used for retrospectives. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm going to show you a little bit about the actual canvas here. So I love that this is like an infinite canvas in Miro, right? Like you can scroll like pretty far, right? It's not that constrained. So what you're seeing here is actually, so the free plan doesn't have all these options. This is from the consultant plan. So the consultant plan is the one I'm on. You know, being a solopreneur and inviting clients to boards and things like that, that's actually the plan that works best for me. It also works really well for agencies, that particular plan. Is because usually the people who need accounts are the people who are creating and sharing boards, and then you can invite clients. You can also get day passes to make clients users for a day if you're doing like a design day or something. So there's a lot of things here. I'm not going to read through all of them, but some of the most important things here are the select tool. So the biggest thing that happens when people join a workshop that I see is they are not selected on the select tool. Oops, wrong thing. So they'll have like the shape or the hand or something else selected, and then they can't click on things, right? So in order to have people click on things, be able to click and drag, enter text, you have to have the select arrow selected. So that's really important. Be like, all right, first thing, make sure your select arrow is selected, make sure it's blue. You can find templates actually from right in here. So just kind of what you were talking about, like, I wonder if we search retrospective, right? So you've got some retrospective templates already in here, Christy. So Rosebud Thorn retrospective, that's actually one of my favorites. I actually use it as a kickoff activity sometimes too. So there's a lot of different templates you can actually start with, and you can use multiple templates within one board. So that's why there's a button for templates right over here on the side. So if you're like, oh, okay, I want this type of mind map and this type of brainstorming, but I don't want to like create a whole new board for each of them, you just hit your little templates thing and you do your use template. So you've got your text button, text box, then you've got your lovely sticky, make your sticky notes. You've got your shapes. Now, what most people miss here is to cut all shapes. So if you click all shapes, it'll show you an expanded menu here, and you can click back to basic shapes. There's some other things here. The one that's really helpful with user experience, sorry, you're gonna hear my dogs here, is the comment box. So you could just go ahead and comment. And if you're using it within a team, you can actually use the @ symbol and tag someone else in your team. It'll give them a notification of that comment if you need them to do something there. And then it just kind of, this is a comment, right? And so it'll say that you can either resolve it, you can set a reminder for it, and then it just shows up as this bubble here. Sorry, my dogs. All right. So Christy, you were asking about this earlier. This is your Canvas map down in the right-hand corner. You can also expand that to full screen, or you expand your screen to full screen. That's what I meant. Leave full screen. You can unpin the map, which will close it down there so it's not in your way. And then you can open it back up. So there's a couple different things you can do there. This one's actually a really cool feature to see your frames in an outline. So I haven't actually used frames for this particular one, except for our first session, our first piece where we had the passports. So if you use a frame for each activity, you'll see them all here, and you can actually just go in here, export each as an image. What I usually do for clients is each activity is a frame, and then we export the activities as PDFs for them and a follow-up email from the project manager afterwards. So it's a really nice feature for client interaction. All right. So voting, I'm going to show you voting later. So we'll hop over that for now. I showed you the timer. This is actually a newer feature they just added, which is board history. And it'll actually show you what everyone did on the board. It'll show you all of the versioning history. It'll show you the different versions of the board and the activity. So this is really helpful if you're iterating on a prototype or wireframes or something like that. And you're like, oh, what happened to that previous version? We liked it, you know, that's really helpful there. So this is all, and you're going to have access to this board afterwards as well. So if you want to go back through and you're like, I forgot what she said, because I'm talking really fast. Sharing features. So we talked to, oh, there's someone in the waiting room. Let's let her in. All right. So where we are right now. So the sharing features, Christy, you were asking about this. Anyone with the link, you can have them, and we'll go over this a little more before, but I just kind of want to at a high level here. You can share the link out for anyone who can view, can comment, can edit, or no access, right? So if you're using this outwardly with a client, you know, after a certain point, you might want to close down access. And then you can also set a password. So right now I have a password set, so that's why it says edit password. And you can also go to your sharing settings here, where it says guests can add their names or guests can't add their names. My default right now is actually guests can't add their names, so I have to go in there and change it when I share it if I'd like for them to add their names. So let's see. Let's bring everyone to, I'm going to go to the next. Any questions before I move on to the next piece that could just kind of give you a layout of the canvas there? Like I said, there's so many features here. You're not going to learn them all today. I still don't know all of them, but these are some of the basic ones that you kind of need to know to get some boards started.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, I have 2 answers, hopefully.
Okay, so first one has to do with the frames you mentioned. Are
Yes.
those similar to like Illustrator's art boards?
They are exactly like Illustrator's artboards.
Okay.
So if you were to create a frame here, so we've got custom, or you can have different sizes. They also have ones for UX here for phone, tablet, browser. So let's do a quick custom one here. So oops, it's here. Right. So basically you'll see it here. You can change the background color of it. So like if we made that a white frame over here, and you can rename the top of these frames. So this is a frame, right? And then you can put activities on top of this, right? You can build things on top of it. So now if we were to look at the outline, you'll see there's our first frame, there's our second frame.
And so like, what if you designed all this stuff not in a frame and you're like, oh, now I really wish I'd put that in a frame. Is there?
Oh, that's easy.
Other than
So,
like copying and pasting it all in there, can you like, you know, click it and say,
you can actually put a frame around it, I believe.
okay.
So let's say let's do it like this. These are all locked, so I might not be able to do it, but see how this goes behind it?
Mm-hmm.
So now all of that is on the frame. So you see here, so all you have to do is put the frame behind it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so my next question is totally unrelated, but you were talking about commenting on this. And can you import images like JPEGs or?
Yes, you can. You can, so this upload here, or you can drag and drop. So you see this mountain in the background here. This is actually an SVG that I created in Illustrator. And all I did was drag and drop it onto the board. So, so you can drag and drop images on, or you can use this upload. You can upload from save files, your Dropbox, if you connect any of these. Usually I just use the drag and drop. I just drag it right onto the board. And you'll probably just have to resize it. I like using SVGs because if I scale them up, then they don't pixelate. So they also seem to load a little faster on Miro as well if you use the SVGs. You can also use PNGs, but sometimes they take a little longer to load depending on how big your board is. So it really depends how detailed you're getting. The other thing is, I actually have one of the apps installed for Unsplash, so free photos. So you can actually search for free photos here. I don't know, let's search for a cat, right? And so you can just choose things from Unsplash and you just click on whatever photo you want there. Oh, oops. There, it went somewhere. We now have a cat photo somewhere on the board. But you can also drag and drop from there or just click on it. But now you see, now I have a cat. We're just gonna put that over there. All right, we'll get to this in the next board about icons, but and there's also a Google image search on here as well. So you've got Unsplash and Google image search. Did I answer your question, Christy?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to bring everyone to me over here. We're going to talk about some of the, oh, we've got someone in the waiting room there. In a second, let me.
Rachel?
Yes.
You sent me this thing in chat.
Yes.
I don't know what to do with it.
Okay. Go ahead and click on the link and it should ask you for a password. And the password is the second. Yep. So the enter that. Yep. Enter that password and then it should bring you to the board.
Okay.
And we have someone else just joined. So let me go ahead and put that link and password to the Miro board again. And so now we're kind of talking about what's in your toolkit, what's in your pack. We're talking about the journey up the mountain here, right? So emojis, icons, text boxes, sticky notes, shapes, which I'm going to show you a really cool thing, which all these different things where you can transform them into other things without having to copy and paste them or do a new shape. Christy, you're going to like this one. Cards. This is really cool feature because you can actually expand cards and then write a lot more things about them so that it's not all right there on the sticky note. So sometimes I'll actually use these for personas. So write a description of persona, and then we might say something like, thanks, feels, jobs to be done, right? I've done this many different ways, but this is one way that I've used cards. You can also use tags here. So, you know, let's say we're talking about particular market profiles for personas, and we know that these are B2B ones, right? I can actually create a B2B tag and it'll tag that card. I know I'm going through things really fast here. We're recording this, so don't worry about that, and ask any questions that you need along the way. You could also assign people and do due dates here. So you can actually have your own little Kanban board on your Miro board if you wanted to use these cards as if they were Kanban cards. Shapes are super cool because you can actually switch the shape type right here by using this, right? Like, oh man, I made a circle and I really wanted a star. Or, you know, I really wanted a cloud for some reason. right? So you can actually change that right there. You can do the same thing with sticky notes and cards. You can change them from a sticky note into something else, or from a card into something else. This top left-hand corner one, that's the icon for card. Or you could change it just into a text box, which is just the T.
I have a question real quick about
Yes.
cards. Can you
Yes.
change the word cards to something else?
Yes, you can.
You can. Okay.
So you just
like the
double
title of
click.
it. Oh,
Yep.
okay, wonderful.
You just title, I just labeled it that. You can also change the color of it. So I made it pink here, but you can actually make it any color you want. And you can also fill the card background with any color you want.
Okay, sweet.
So,
Thank you.
yes,
Rachel, sorry, and I just missed, and I know you said it, so apologies.
no worries.
What's the main purpose of the cards?
So you can use them for a lot of different things. I just gave an example of how I use those for personas, where if I needed more information, I've used it before for stakeholder groups. You can really use it. You could use it for a task. You could put a task in there, and then there's more details about the task. You can really use it for anything. It's just a more in-depth post-it,
Okay.
right?
Great. Thank you.
And you'll see here, you can see the tag on it. Another really cool thing is you can actually add tags to post-it notes also. And it'll show down there in the corner. You can add tags to a lot of different, I don't think you can add them to shapes, but you can add them to post-its and cards. We already talked through kind of adding those photos from Unsplash. You can also add icons. So already built into Miro, you'll have your icon finder, and you can search for anything. So let's say you need a person for a persona or something. You can actually just drag your icon onto your board, make it whatever size you need to. And there's a pretty vast icon library in here. There's also emojis. I like to use these sometimes for voting activities. So you'll see later on, I've used some of the hearts for voting activities. Kind of makes it a little fun. This is the whole library of emojis here. There's also a wireframe library. So if you're actually doing wireframes, you do not have to work from scratch, right? Like there's already some built in here for standard buttons, headers, text like search box, right? And then there's some standard icons. You can search for more as well.
Question real quick about
Yes.
wireframes. If I own the Miro account, like I'm the consultant and it's my account, can I share access with another team member and they build out a wireframe, or do they need, okay. So as long as
if you share it with and I would recommend doing it with a link and a password. If you share it with a link and a password and you give them editor access, so make sure when you're sharing that you do anyone with the link can edit.
Like Google Docs.
Yes. So then they wouldn't need a paid Miro account. They can just build a wireframe in it. The only thing that people cannot do that you share it to with a link is, so if you as the owner lock pieces of the board, and I'll show you how to do that later, they can't unlock it if you set it to only owner can unlock, right? So if there's certain things you do not want them to move or do not want them to change, I'll show you how to lock that down. The other thing they can't do is they can't share out that board, right? So they can't change your password to share it. They can't use those share settings because they're not the board owner. So, all right. Lines and arrows. So you have lots of different options here. This is really helpful with things like flowcharts. So you can actually connect things with lines. So you see when it's telling me, okay, you want to connect it from here to here. It gives you the points. And then you can actually choose your line type, right? You want a wavy line, you want a dotted line, you want a dashed line. So if you can also change the weight here and the color. Right? So these are really helpful. I've used them actually. You see our dotted lines here connecting each to the other. You can really easily change the tooltips on them from the front and the back. So if you want, little diamonds at the end of those. You can see they've added them here. When you make the lines thicker, they also get thicker. So that's one thing there. So I've made a little sandbox here for everyone. So let me bring everyone to me. I want you just to kind of play around here with everything we talked about, right? Like choose some emojis, throw them in there on how you're feeling right now. Use some shapes and lines to build a building together, right? I'm going to show you here in a second how to play with and arrange sticky notes as well. So while you're doing that, and then on this last one here, transform some of these shapes. Like I told you how to, if you click on the shape, you can transform it into another shape. So with stickies, you can change the colors here. Click on it, change it to any color. So I've got a couple on here for you to play with there. To arrange stickies, you can actually select an area of stickies. And then you see this little button here with the 4 squares. Just click that and it'll arrange it all nice and neatly for you. What's really nice about the colors too, and I know, you know, us as some of us as designers will appreciate this. So when you go to colors, you know, you'll see I have all these colors here, but you can also click this plus sign at the bottom and you can just put in hex code. You can customize these colors to whatever you want. So you can actually see that the board that I have here is Miro branded, and that's custom colors that I've branded this board.
Oh, speaking of custom and branding,
Yeah.
Fonts. Can you
Yes.
upload your brand font and your brand colors?
So your brand colors you can, because you just add them with the little plus sign here. So what I'll usually do if I'm creating a board for a client and I want the brand colors is I will add them all right away. I'll put the hex codes in here. So that, yep. Yeah. In terms of, let me get a text here. In terms of text, let me make this bigger. So, oops. All right, let's do it right here. Text here. So we're gonna make this a little bigger. So you'll see that the fonts that are already in here. I do not believe you can upload fonts. I usually use a pretty standard one like Roboto or Open Sans, depending on it. Because I don't usually get too crazy with the fonts in here. If I need to create something that's in a branded font, I will create that in Illustrator and upload and drag and drop it into Miro. But in terms of things just kind of typing in Miro, these are the fonts that are available to you.
To those, yep. Okay.
Yep. Yep. All right. Make sense? Everyone have any questions here? Got to play around with it a little, have a little fun. All right. So we talked about some of these interactive features already, but I just left them here on the board. So if you guys want to go back to this board and see it, you can. I'm going to talk a little bit about locking right now. So Christina was talking to you about that earlier. So let me go ahead and create just like a shape down here. So you'll see this little lock comes up here. So if you wanted to lock this shape and you didn't want anyone to move it, you just hit that little lock. So you'll see when you lock it, there's 2 options here, a long press to unlock. And then you've got this little shield. So right now it's set to anyone can unlock, but if you click it, it goes to only the owner can unlock. And if that's blue, then only the owner can unlock that particular piece on the board. So it says, and you can hover over there, only the board owner can unlock now. And then if you want to unlock, you just long press. When something is locked, it won't move with the frame either, I believe. I'll have to double check that, but it's pretty much locked down there. And it's really important when you're having your workshops to lock down pieces that people aren't using, because let me tell you, they move them by accident, but they move them. So
what about this notes thing on the right hand side? I tried to move it out of the way. When I click it, it says, yeah, that it's not letting me. Yeah, I tried to click.
You see the little X here? Can you click the X?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So how do we get it back? Oh, the note. Oh, there you
Yep.
go.
So this little note icon
Yeah.
here. So this is has the agenda in it actually, but you can use it for anything. People can comment on it as well. And you can, so like if you wanted to start with the agenda there, sometimes I'll put an agenda there. Sometimes I'll put an agenda on its own frame in the board. But what's really nice about this is you can actually export it as a PDF. So let's say you created your agenda here and wanted to export it as a Word doc or a PDF for the people in your meeting, then you're not recreating things over.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then you can also pin it here as the owner. So let's say once everyone goes on that board, you want them to see it right away. So you go ahead and pin it. That way they see it, and then you can unpin it so everyone can close it.
That's what I was trying to do, to close it.
So there's also a chat feature in here. So it's really nice, even for people who are invited. You can just kind of, as you're collaborating in the board, chat in there. If you're, doing a session like this and someone wants to just, just write a message. Everyone's kind of chatting in there, tells you who said what. And then you can actually close this out using the X as well. So that's really, it's a great way also if you're sustaining on that board. So if you're not just using it during the call, if it's being used for collaboration afterwards, if someone wants to chat on there or write a comment to someone. I've already showed you the timer. I'll probably, if we do another event later in the year, that's more focused on workshop flow, I'll get a bit more into the timer. Voting. So I'm going to just talk about the super high level because we're actually going to do an activity later where I'm going to use a voting a piece so you can kind of see how it works. But the voting is this little thumbs up at the bottom, and you can actually create voting sessions for a particular part of the board. And you can actually identify whether you want them to vote on sticky notes, text, shapes, cards, images. So let's say you had cards instead of Post-it notes, you would just keep cards selected, and then it would only allow them to vote on the cards. And you can set the custom space of where they're going to vote. And I'll go into this a little more when we actually use it. Christy, we talked a little bit about this, about the navigation mode, setting it about your trackpad and your mouse. This is where you find it up in the share link up there. And the set the start view is really important. Because you see how big my board is here. So I set a start view, right? I want you all to go here when you first come. So I move the start view to just that piece and hit done, right? Because I want you to go when the board comes. I don't want you to like be in some weird random part of the board. I want you to see this piece of the board. All right. Let's talk templates.
Did you do that again? Can you go back and do that again?
Yes, I can.
I'm looking at this.
So you do sets.
I don't see
So if you
that.
set smart view or start
Oh,
view.
is it because you're the owner of the board?
Oh yeah, you can't do that on this board. You'll have to do it on your own board. So only if you're the owner of the board can you set the start view. There's certain things you won't be able to see when you're not the owner. Yeah. So this is the other thing here, collaborators cursors, right? So depending on, I've got, now I can see where everyone's cursor is. I had that turned off before. If I have a workshop of like 50 people, it gets really confusing to see everyone's cursors if I'm sharing my screen. Now, we're going to use another tool in some future events called Butter instead of Zoom, which actually integrates the Miro board into the video in the sharing screen. So instead of just looking at the shared screen, you can actually interact with the Miro board on the shared screen in Butter. So you wouldn't have to have your Miro board open and a shared screen. So, all right, let's talk templates. We've got a kitty cat up there. There's that cat. There's the cat. There's our random cat that we lost. All right.
Rachel, can you see
Yes.
my cursor?
I can. You are up here. I'm going to bring you to me.
Oh, very good. Okay.
So I'll bring everyone to me.
I can't see me, so.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, you can.
All right. All right. So let's talk about templates. So we've got start from a template. Like I showed you before, internally in here, you can click templates and you can start from a template. You can also click this box here that says show when creating a board. So every time you create a board, it'll pop up with, do you want to use a template? I actually don't use a lot of these templates because I make my own. So that's why I have it unchecked. The Miroverse is a little different. So templates are pieces that you could put on a board, right? So you could put an icebreaker on a board. You can put some voting votes on a board. You can put kind of this meeting reflection on a board. Miroverse, and right here you'll see there's a little link, this little Miro icon. If you click on that, it takes you to the Miroverse. Miroverse is a whole activity, a whole workshop even, right? So some of my favorite ones I've put over here. So this is actually a decision jam template, which is really nice. So you can actually see this is a whole activity set up in the Miroverse. It gives you a start place, a warm up, it gives you the whole workshop and the work areas. So all you need to do is when you're logged into Miro, go to the Miroverse, search for what you want and click use template. And then it will actually create a board for you. So it wants, okay, I want to create it in my team. I have several teams. And it will actually create the board. Everything will be editable and you can customize it however you need. That's going to take a second. We'll let it do its thing. So there's a couple other ones on here that I really like that I shared. The rapid ideation template's really nice. I like this one just because it's really cool. Ideation space. It's this whole universe of ideation. And here's a really nice one for guide for new participants in a Miroverse template. So here it is. So you'll see this is the template we just uploaded. So this is actually one of the variations of the sailboat activity I was telling you about, Christy. But you know, you can actually make sure you see right now how my thing is a hand. Make sure you click on the arrow, and then you can actually edit. You know, make sure you credit obviously whoever you're using here, adapted from whatever, or using their actual template. Make sure you credit them. So I have a little area here for you. We won't do this today because you're just exploring the Miroverse, but as you find templates that you really like, a really nice way to kind of give back to this community is, hey, I found this template. I'm going to pop it on this board for everyone else to see. I really like this one. And the way to do that is, so let's find one here real quick. Let's find a brainstorming activity. All right, let's take this research plan. So all you have to do is grab this, just copy the link, go to your Miro board and control V or command V, whether you're on PC or Mac. If you just paste the link and just make it a little bigger, it'll give you the link, the actual link here. So you see this little source button. When you click on that, that will open it up. So all you have to do if you want to share a web page on Miro is copy and paste the link onto the board. What I really like to do with linking things, instead of just keeping it here where you have to click on it to hit source, is I'll hit the little 3 dots here. And then we go to link to, and you've still got your hyperlink on your clipboard. So just paste it in there and hit confirm. And what that'll do is add this little box in the upper right-hand corner. So now people don't have to click on it and hit source. All they have to do is just click the little box in the upper right-hand corner. So it's just a different way to get them to that link. I found that to be a lot easier for people to get to links on the board instead of having to click them and look for the little source icon. All right. Any questions? We're going to go into a brainstorming activity here. Now I'm going to get you thinking a little and stop talking at you. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring everyone to me. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming. We're going to take a little bit of time to ideate on what kind of rocks are in your way. What challenges are you having with collaborating virtually? What are your challenges with remote meetings? What's holding you back from diving more into Miro? What are any of the challenges you're having, right? So go ahead and double click on your post-its, write about what any of those rocks that are in your way. All right, so I actually consult with companies, and this is part of what I do to them. I do for them is I create templates in Miro that they can then use in their processes. So, you know, if you have someone internal on the team, you make that an internal project, you kind of look at those processes, get those things set up, create a template library. You know, those are the best ways to kind of make it repeatable so that you're not creating one exactly when you need it, right? So yes, there is some prep time up front, but if you create repeatable templates, then it gets smoother and quicker. Overcoming tech barriers, working with government customers. That's a, yep. That one is a lot of just education up front, right? What to expect, you know, a quick sheet, an email that says what to expect for this, maybe even kind of a play around board for them to play around in before you get to the actual workshop. Usually with our clients, what I will do is have a project kickoff meeting, which is not a workshop, but even though it's a kickoff, we use a Miro board for it. So even if there aren't activities in it, we're just priming them, we're acclimating them to the Miro board. Instead of using a PowerPoint presentation, we use the Miro board.
Oh, that's
So,
clever.
yeah, and it's actually been working really well. We just did a kickoff for a web discovery engagement with a client, and we actually did the project kickoff in Miro, and then we sent them the PDFs of the frames where we kind of talked about, okay, what who are your stakeholders that we're going to work with on this project, all those things. We actually PDF those boards and sent it back to them as a follow-up after the kickoff. We did our timeline in there. Yes, Christina?
Is this product FedRAMP compliant?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's
not too common to have, yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe so. Miro might be, but we're talking about Miro. I actually prefer the user interface in Miro personally. That's why I use Miro. But even that said, you could, you know, if you're doing internal projects or stuff like that, you can always use something like this. Getting team buy-in. That's an interesting one. So I guess it depends on your team, right? If your team is design focused or tech focused or have their own tools that they use, right? I'm always a fan of let people use the tools that they're comfortable using. And so I, even with like things like design systems, for me, those are always guidelines that can grow, right? So unless it's like a standard from the company, oh, we only use this tool, or we only use this tool with clients. So the agency I work with right now, we do only use Miro with clients because it helps us teach the team how to use it, you know, and it helps the clients stay consistent. If a client goes and talks to another potential client, says, hey, this is how their process works, it's not completely different when that other client comes to us. So there is something to be said for consistency. With anything, people don't like change, you know, so buy-in is always an issue. What I would say is get people excited about it on your team. Use it for, you know, like a treasure hunt or like a brown bag, or get people excited about working in the tool. And I think that helps with buy-in. Participating in a Miro meeting first. Clients are a bit more reluctant to participate remotely. That's interesting. Some are. So I've actually found that because I only work with remote clients, that they actually prefer the remote. What I would say about Miro is you can even use it internally with your teams. It doesn't always have to be client facing. If clients are reluctant to participate remotely, there is actually a feature on Miro where you can capture sticky notes, physical sticky notes, and translate them to a Miro board. So let's say you did an in-person workshop with a client and you're like, okay, what I want to take all this information back and I want to work with my team on it on the Miro board. I believe it's on the app. I'll get you guys some information on that and put it on the resources board. But you just take a picture of all the sticky notes and it will translate it to your Miro board. And so you can actually use it in a hybrid type of way.
Okay.
All right. We're going to skip the little voting activity here because we're running out of time and I talked about most of them anyway. But this is one of the ways you can vote on Miro, is using emojis to vote instead of using the internal voting. So really what I do here is I ask people, okay, drag over to vote on your top 3. And I'll have them drag over the emojis to their top 3 challenges, right? So we can kind of get a consensus. And it gives you also, right, this heat map type thing that you can see at a glance. So that's another way to vote instead of using the internal voting.
And that works the same as like pulling a little red dot, for instance.
You can actually use anything here. You could use shapes, you could use icons. I like to use emojis just because it makes it fun.
No, the heart's great. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, there's also a beta feature here called reactions. So this is a little different. So let's say if you're doing a warm up and you want people to react to post-its. So it pops this little thing up here where you can actually react to things.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's a beta feature. What's interesting about that though is you can't, it's actually for people to react in real time. So I wouldn't use that for voting.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over here. So what types of things you want, after learning like very high level, some of these things in Miro I'm teaching you, what do you want to learn more about? What didn't I talk about that you want to learn about? What other types of events should I have? What are things you want to learn? So come over here to the pink stickies and start writing some of those. All right, more about tagging. Can things be filtered in Miro? That's a good question because I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out the answer to that.
Well, I noticed that you had put B2B.
Yeah.
And in that particular section you did it, you were using this pink color. So it was kind of hard to see the B2B. And I imagine like just looking at this board with so much stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
you can actually change that color.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
in general, there's just a lot of stuff on this board and on
Yep.
the whole screen. So like, how do I, if I tag things, because I want to see like a relationship between these things, what's a quick way to see that relationship amongst all this other stuff?
I don't know. Let's see. You can use the search box. So looks like here, B2B, if I type in B2B here, I can see all the things that have that tag. It looks like there's also a filter here. Filter tags. So I'm not sure exactly how that feature works, but I'll find out more and let you know. But it looks like there is the ability to search for those. You can actually say what you're trying to search for it within cards, images, frames, comments. So that's pretty cool. I learned something new.
Yeah. What is that? You in that drop down you had? What is the CA? Yeah, and the tags. What is CA Agile cards? What is that?
I do not know actually what CA Agile cards are. I wonder if that's a new feature. I will look into that for you.
Cool.
I know you can do a Kanban board on here. It might be that. It might be the boards that are the cars that are within a Kanban board.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so actually you can actually do, where did that go? I just clicked it. All right, we'll have a random Kanban board somewhere again.
Rachel,
Yes.
you mentioned previously about sending your completed workshop back to the client. What is the best way to do that rather than having to distill it and type it all out again? And yeah.
So I actually do both. I do a summary of findings from the workshop, but then I also send them the raw data like you're talking about. So there's a couple different ways you can do that.
Yeah.
If we've used the frames here, so let's say you used a different frame for each activity, you can actually go here and do export as image, and you can export as a JPEG or a vector or a PDF or a JPEG here, and it'll export that. And usually I'll send them PDFs of those boards. If you can also come up here to export this board, and you can actually save the whole board as a PDF or an image. I would recommend, so I believe you can only save as a PDF with a paid account. But I do recommend if you have a paid account to save as a PDF, because then they can zoom in and out without it getting pixelated.
Okay.
So that's the best way to share kind of the raw data with them. I also, if I'm working with a client and I have multiple boards, I'll set the same password for all of their boards so that they don't have to remember other passwords. And I just send a summary to them with their board links and password in case they want to go back and look at that board during the duration of our project.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you a little bit about voting here. We've only got two things here. But I'm just going to show you how to set up a vote. So if you click here and we do create voting session. So we're going to do vote on what we want to learn. So learning vote, we'll call this. Because we don't have a lot of things filled in here, actually, let's just fill in some things. We talked about, okay, how search works. I was going to look into that one. Let's more about onboarding clients to Miro. I heard that one.
Maybe how notes works and what the value of the notes feature.
Value of the notes feature.
Yeah. How do you use that efficiently?
Value of the notes feature. One of the things I thought might be interesting for you guys is basically how to prepare a workshop from scratch, like what to prep for, how to do the flow. All right, so what we'll do here when we're setting up the vote, one thing to remember, because I've made this mistake a couple times, this is not minutes and seconds, it's hours and minutes. So if you want a 3-minute vote, you have to do 0-3. Because if you put 3 at the top, at the front here, you're going to have a 3-hour vote. And that is not what you want. So here is
what's the use case for doing anything longer than 59 minutes? That's just
I have no idea. I think it's just, I wonder if that's a feature request we should give them.
Next time.
Yeah. So votes per person. So go ahead and go here for 3 votes per person. And then we're going to change the voting area here. So you'll see here, it's giving me, okay, where do you want to vote? So where do you want the area to be? So one of the things is make sure not to just get the shape. So because if someone has put a Post-it outside, if it's not in your voting area, they won't be able to vote on it. So then you hit done down here and you'll see it changed here to the custom space. So what we want is to unclick everything except sticky notes, because otherwise when they get the plus sign to vote, it's going to go on your images, it's going to go on your title, and you don't want that. You just want people to vote on the sticky notes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit start now here, and you should see a little voting thing come up on your screens. And you want to click, does everyone see that on their screens? You want to hit vote now. And what you should see on your screen is you should see these little plus signs next to each of the Post-its. And what you want to do is vote on your top 3. right? So you would just click on your top 3 on your own screen, right? And so when you're done, you can either wait for the vote to expire or you go ahead and hit done. When you hit done, we wait for everyone else to kind of finish their voting. And as the board owner, you can actually end the vote for all. If everyone says, hey, I'm done, I'm not sure how to stop, right? You can actually end the vote for everyone. So even if you did accidentally hit 3 hours, you can end the vote for everyone way before that 3 hours is up. All right. So if you go ahead and hit end vote, I'm going to hit end voting for all just so we can kind of see everything here. So I'm going to hit end for all, and it's going to go ahead and process the results for us. So you could see it, you could start to see it on the screen while it's still processing it off on the side. So you could see which ones have more votes. It does sort it for you with the most votes at the top. And the results actually sustain in the board as well. So you can see here, learning vote. If you wanted to go back and see those results, you can. So you just go ahead and hit the back arrow there. So that stays on the owner's board and the participants. Yes.
And you like the emojis because there's like you can visually see the quantity.
You can visually see the quantity
versus reading the numbers.
Yeah, I just find that the UX of the voting for me is a little difficult sometimes. I will use it if I have more than 10 participants because it gets really kind of crazy with emojis at that point. But most of my workshops are anywhere from 3 to 7 participants. So which is why I usually use the emojis.
Can you give a quick example of what you use voting for?
Sure. So if we do a huge brainstorming activity, so like what we just did here, if I do like a creative matrix where we're brainstorming on things in different parts of the matrix for an intersection of a theme and a type of event we want them to brainstorm on, we could have 80 responses, right, for the whole group. And really what we need to do at that point is we can't go ahead and ideate solutions for, you know, or if we're ideating how might we questions, right? We might have 30 how might we questions. We can't really move forward to solutioning on 30 to 80 things. So we really need to understand the top 3 to 5 priorities. Another thing is priorities, right? If I'm working with a company on identifying, let's say, their strategic goals for their brand, right? Like, let's say we might have like 30 of those, right? But what do they want to work on today, right? And what do they want to prioritize for the next 6 months to a year, right? Like that helps us kind of prioritize those things. If you're doing a journey map and you're identifying brand touch points on the journey map, a voting exercise is really helpful to identify which touch points are a priority to them today. What do they want to work on today? Because you can't work on everything in a customer journey at the same time.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Did I answer your question?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. All right, so we'll go ahead and close this voting session out. The rest of the session here is really just kind of networking stuff. This is for you to leave behind after the session. You know, really, this is about what do you need help with that this community can help you with as we start to build this community. What can you offer to the community? Doesn't necessarily have to be related to Miro. You know, maybe someone in the community needs help building a website and there's someone else who's either a freelancer or an agency and builds websites, right? The goal here is to connect people within this community to create those kind of networks. So if you want to come back to this board, you don't have to think of it right off the top of your head now. Just put, I need help with blank, and then put your name and your email after that. Or I can offer blank and put your name and your email after that. So people know who to come to within the community for what they can offer and what they need. I'm going to walk through this last piece with you here as well. Just some leave behinds, right? I wish we talked about this today. What if we talked about this in the future? Can we do this, right? Just some things to kind of help frame what we want to do in this community in the future. And then I've left you with this lovely resources board here. So if you would like to hear more about Miro, maybe from someone else, so you could stop listening to Rachel talk for an hour and a half. So you go ahead, and there's a whole bunch of resources here. Here's a a guide on how to do virtual brainstorming. There's some great videos in here by Miro. There's a whole Miro Academy page, which has got some great courses on specific topics. Here's the Miroverse. Here's some resources. 7 ways to make remote collaboration effective with an online whiteboard. And this is specific to Miro, that particular blog article. So these are just some of my favorite resources. So to access these, all you have to do is click the little link in the corner of each one of these, and it'll take you to all these different resources. You know, just some extra reading on your free time.